shaped you that made you go on this journey?
That's a deep question to start off with. I mean, I would be lying if I said that, I'd planned my whole life to work in legal tech. I think I sort of stumbled into the area. I think me as a person, I grew up in a small island in the archipelago of Stockholm, like 1,500 people. I was always really competitive. There wasn't a lot of other kids to compete with on the island. So kind of naturally, I started playing video games, competing internationally. And I think that, um, it really drives this idea of, you want to be best and you want to get things done. I moved from the island into Stockholm, you went to a better school, you met more people, you started competing with them, and that kind of continues. And at some point you're like, well, what is the biggest arena we can compete in? And it's kind of business. So I always wanted to start a company. My dad has two, may I dare say, failed startups from the .com era. And so I think, third time's the charm has always kind of been a bit in my blood. It's actually funny. We're going to move into an office which is in the same building that he was in 25 years ago. And I've always been kind of entrepreneurial. I think I like motivating people. I like solving problems. I like doing hard things, and I'm terrible at having a boss. I only survived 9 weeks at McKinsey before I said,
you are unemployable. You are basically unemployed.
Well, I'm not the one who said it, but I really just want to like push things. How can we go further? I think legal tech was something that my two co-founders had spent, initially more time in than me. None of them are lawyers, but one of them lived with a lawyer, and so that person ended up, or that lawyer, in fact, ended up going to internships in big law, went to a court, and all they did was like read through court cases and fill in Excel files. Like, it was such manual and repetitive job that they frankly didn't understand. Why am I studying 5 years to do this? And my co-founder, they started working with the early NLP models, in primarily BERT, which was a big model that came out of Google. But it was so bad, especially in Swedish and kind of non-English languages. And so when GPT came, that became the, paradigm shift needed to actually build what we wanted to build. Initially, I think in our first pitch deck, it kind of said, legal data is a black hole, and was like a picture of a black hole or something like that. And I remember the first person we pitched to, I think, was Jan Villamo at Rochier in June of 2023. And we only had the deck because we didn't have a product at the time. And I remember he was being really nice with us, like, 3 random dudes pitching me something. But from that point, I think we understood that there is something to be built here. You just need to have a lot of drive, grit, and be able to like run through the glass and pain of trying to work and sell to law firms. And the first real believer in what we were doing was Jan Danestam, the managing partner of Mannheimer. So initially, I had a really hard time getting a meeting with him. Somebody said it's harder to break into Fort Knox than like getting it's harder to break into his calendar than breaking into the Fort Knox or something.
Well, you haven't tried yet. Maybe it's your next startup. Who knows?
So far, we still have funding, left to go. But I managed to get a meeting, and I met him in the office. And I remember walking in there, I was like, wow, this is probably the nicest office I've ever seen. And I even stole a pen with me because I wanted to show the other guys working on the project with us, like, hey, we have a pen from the best law firm in the Nordics here. But then after 30 minutes, he just said, Max, I'm a guy who likes to take decisions on the spot. We should work together. And my pitch was basically like, we know AI, you know legal. I don't know legal, you don't know AI, let's do something together. And we became part of their innovation hub. We actually got an office in their office. So we had a conference room, typically nicknamed the bunker. So not the nice one, but the one that we got to sit in. And we just sat down, for 6-8 months and did nothing but code, iterate, and build product. And then the market had a reaction to that, and I think I'm as well suited as anybody to build in legal tech, but I think I'm quite well suited to actually run and scale a software company. I care a lot about what we build, but I think I might care even more about who I build it with. I was always, really frustrated in university or at other workplaces where I didn't get to pick the people I got to work with. It was always like, oh, I'm so frustrated with that person, or oh, why did I have to get that guy in my school project? Like now I have to carry him. And now we finally have the chance to pick the group ourselves. And so, of course, we're extremely picky and we care deeply about who we bring on board because it's who I spend most of my time with. And I think you also become sort of an average of the people that you spend your time with. And, every time you bring somebody into the team, you're either raising the average or lowering the average of the team. And so I always care about raising that average. So in terms of what we look for, I think again grit, willingness to work hard even when it's tough. Now we have a lot of momentum, but it's also hard to keep momentum. So you can't really get comfortable. You need to be quite smart because I think we're solving hard problems and we're innovating and we're pushing boundaries. I think we're all very good at having opinions, but being quite loosely held about them. So it is a team of many very strong contributors. There is not a very clear hierarchical or organizational structure yet, but just a bunch of people who are really smart and who want to do something together.
There's one thing I would love to know, Max. You're definitely an unconventional thinker, of course, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But there's something I would like to know from you, the kind of definition of success. Because there's a lot of buzz around, especially in the startup environment, what success means. How can you value it? If it's about money, if it's about assets, if it's about how your company's growing, it's about potential, it's about the funding that you get, it's about the people. Everyone says it's about the people, but down to earth, when you try to ask, at least to most of the startups or also big businesses, what is about the people you're talking about? Because you mentioned something before, you want to raise the bar of how many smart brains are with me in this room today to make sure that I keep doing something better than yesterday, right? So within this context, my question to you, for you, Max and Leya and the Leya people, how do you define success in your journey?
I think success in our journey is when no lawyer has to manually fill out an Excel file with data points from court cases, or when doing things like producing board minutes from an SPA, or extracting key terms from a limited partnership agreement document. And it's just these things that people know how to do and how to accomplish, and still you gotta do it over and over again just because there isn't a process for it. And AI still has an incredibly long way to go in being implemented effectively in many of these work streams. And when I look back at what we're doing here, I think I'm going to be the proudest if all the firms we work with and all the lawyers and all the corporates say Leya was the best company we could ever have brought on boarded as a partner. They built the best software. They were the best people to talk to. They were the most honest and fun. And I'm just so happy about it. I would never regret it. And similarly, I hope that everybody who works here, whenever their journey at Leya is up, it's maybe 10 years down the road, or they start their own amazing company 3 years down the road, and they say Leya was the best decision ever to do. It was the most fun. It was the most brilliant people. I learned so much. It was really hard, but I remember the hard times in a good way. It's painful, but it's fun pain when you look back on it. I think if everybody thinks that, then I'm gonna be the most happy I could be.
Wow.
That's amazing. I mean, just paraphrasing what you said, it really is then putting the people first. That's
I think so. It's about putting the customer first, and it's about putting people who work here first. I mean, we're all here motivated, for sure, by some measure of financial success, but also the expected value could be higher by going and working at a well-established company, right?
Mm.
But I think we are very mission driven, and we have a lot to prove, and we're here to do it, and it's fun. and it's engaging, and it's like amongst your peers, and you don't have, political or hierarchical bosses that tell you what you can do and what you cannot do. It's rather, oh, that's awesome. How can we do it faster?
Well, I have to say, I love talking to people that are working in legal tech that are not legal, like don't have a legal background themselves. I feel like you guys are most honest about what's actually happening. So that brings me to a question on expectations. You mentioned that as part of your team, you want people to join that are happy in the team, but they're also willing to face the challenges that you'll come across along the road. You mentioned Mannheimer, the fact that it was hard to get in. When you got in, it was very exciting. What are some of the initial expectations you really had about the legal space and implementing
So
AI tools? Yeah, I'd love
yeah,
to know.
so maybe a good or fun story is like, um, Y Combinator was really unsure whether or not to invite us because we were selling to law firms at the time. Now we've sort of, we're lawyers, like much more
Yeah.
horizontal, but at the time we were primarily focused on law firms, and they were incredibly skeptical. Max, no team in YC has ever succeeded selling to law firms. It's like the hardest market. The incentives are just not there. Like, why are three random dudes from Sweden gonna be the guys to do it? And I was like, Gustav was a partner at YC, who's also Swedish, by the way. And I was like, there's gonna be times where like a contrarian idea is gonna be right, and this is the time. Like, I have a term sheet in my hand for twice the YC valuation, and if you're not gonna invite us, like, I don't think, like, I wouldn't want you as my partner, kind of thing. And he was like, shit, who's this guy? We need to work with him. And that was, I think, our initial, reaction to many things. Wow, this is going to be really hard. But and I'm not sure if people thought I was on drugs when I came and sold them Leya the first time, but I was probably the most enthusiastic guy about legal tech they had ever met. And
That
I
makes
was
a
just
huge
like,
difference.
I want to learn about your problems. I want to build solutions. Like, we're here, literally. Like, I'll come to your office. I'll sit in your office until it works. And I think people weren't really used to that in this field. I think most people are used to buying things from like mossy sellers who,
True.
they've been at like Dropbox for 4 years, and then they want to come and do something else. Like, they're just used to interact with like B2B enterprise people who don't really give a shit, and they just want commission. And the solutions aren't like magical. It all kind of looks like it was built in the 90s or like early 2000s. Like, look at some of the like comparison tools out there. Like, you're just, you know, we can do better. And so I think as software engineers, you're also somewhat spoiled with good software, which lawyers haven't been. And so being able to take a big part of that and deliver that in a more, user-friendly, easily adoptable, oh, it looks like Instagram and it just like works. That's actually a really powerful selling.
Yeah.
What I would love to ask you, maybe to wrap up this part, is moving from the enthusiasm and the background to what you guys are actually doing. I mean, this episode wouldn't be complete if we don't actually talk about what Leia is doing and what's coming down the pipeline. So would you want to talk us through some of those super exciting things
Sure.
that are going on and next steps?
Sure. I think we're building the best AI-powered work desk for lawyers. And what that means in practice is being relentlessly focused on building product that's really good and that works and that solves concrete use cases. And I think that's a big shift that we've done in the last couple of months, moving from this idea that a general AI software is going to solve all the legal problems, and rather say, how do we solve for contract extraction when you're looking at like long lease agreements and you want to know about the 50 interesting data points that will then feed into a report that goes out to your client? Or how do we, quickly review public credit agreements, loan agreements? How do we create timelines? How do you compare documents that are, much longer than what fits in the context window of any model? And those are some of the technical challenges that the team here has solved. I was actually on a call just before this one doing a live demo, and I typically go like, well, I don't have a script, so it's always off script, but they started asking me, oh, how does this compare to Copilot and some of the other tools on the market? And I just brought up all the other tools and I tested it live in all of them. And I was like, well, I
Wow.
don't know, so how about we try it? And Leya ended up giving us, a response in, dare I say, like 100x more detail, going like chapter by chapter in a 500-page book, whereas ChatGPT was like, well, I can't even do this task. Like, sorry, I'm out, bro. So, what's coming next? We've doubled down on things like our iManage integration, our integration with SharePoint. We're adding more models to the software. So not relying on a single one, but actually kind of spreading many eggs in a few baskets. And just a lot of I think, quality of life improvement as well. When you build something that really works, people come to you and they say, oh, I want to do this again, but now I want to do it on my whole Dropbox folder. And they try to like dump that into the file upload and like, shoo, now our software needs to scale to have thousands and soon like tens of thousands of lawyers being active on the platform every week. And that's just like good, solid engineering. In terms of like solving real concrete tasks, I think things like integrating natively with editors and doing the work where the lawyers are used to doing their work is an important aspect. I think a few of our partnerships, like the one we have with From Counsel, Alma in Finland, and more to be added around legal content and how that can be leveraged within Leya is an important aspect, because that can, add something more than what just natively GPT has. But again, many of these firms also have huge repositories of precedents and previous cases that are not, well leveraged in these ways of working today. So just hooking up AI to their whole, index their documents is actually a huge value created.